Okay, this is 1 and 2.
Yes.
What does it say about 1 and 2?
Margaret and John T. Johnstone. In the early 1820s, John Johnstone, 19, of Berkeley County, North Carolina, came to Madison County. His two brothers, William and Samuel, came with him in hopes of buying land and establishing plantations in the new state of Mississippi. William was 15 and Samuel was 13. John eventually bought 2,560 acres where the chapel sits today. We have learned that John Johnston was confident, bold, and daring, ready to accept the challenge of the wilderness to achieve his dream of a southern dynasty. He did not lead a life of leisure, securing his father's riches, but sought his own, which add to the sense of strength. John Johnstone died at the age of 47. His wife Margaret built the Chapel of the Cross in his memory. Margaret was 40 when her husband died, leaving her in charge of plantations and raising of their youngest daughter, Helen. Margaret Johnston's exceptional qualities are revealed in her handling of the business affairs of her plantations. John Johnston's epitaph reads, "He lies here awaiting the resurrection of the just." Margaret Johnston's epitaph reads, "And her children shall rise up and call her blessed." The orate fits around this historic section of the cemetery dates to 1852.
1852.
Yep, that's 1 and 2.
Alright, and here's 3 and 4. So
3 and 4 of Francis and William Brighton. Francis Johnston Brighton, 1825 to 1907, was the oldest child of Margaret and John Johnston. She married William Brighton, 1816 through 1871, and they built Ingleside. William Brighton was also a large landowner with plantations in the Mississippi Delta and Madison County. Their descendants worship at the chapel today. So that's Francis and William Brighton.
okay. Alright, here's number 5.
Is Angelina Fedora Bassett Carter. Angie was born a slave at Mount Vernon, Virginia. She, her sister, and her mother were bought by William Brighton and came to live and work at Ingleside. They remained with the Brighton family after the Civil War. Angie requested that she be buried at the feet of Miss Brighton. Angie died in 1936 at the age of 97.
Aww. How sweet. Alright, let's go to 6.
Number 6.
Do we need to go down here? Okay. I don't want to step on anyone's tombstone.
Number 6 was the story that you were telling me about, Cindy. It's Henry Gray Vick. Henry was the fiance of John and Margaret Johnston's youngest daughter, Helen. Henry's broken carriage wheel during the Christmas of 1855 led to love and plans for marriage on May 21st, 1859. Henry was killed in a duel 4 days before the wedding. The body was brought to the chapel, and near midnight on May 20th, the sorrowful procession, lit by torchbearers, made its way to this place behind the chapel. Bishop Green prepared to perform an order of marriage, instead performed the burial of the dead. As the casket was lowered into the ground, the clock struck midnight. A new day had dawned. May 21st, 1859, his wedding day.
And supposedly his wife haunts the grounds.
Number 7.
Alright, let's go to number 7.
Number 7.
Oh, it looks like a baby.
Yep, is Little George. In 1862, Helen Johnston married at the Chapel of the Cross a chaplain in the Confederate Army, George Carroll Harris, 1836 through 1911. He served as rector of the chapel several times. Helen and Reverend Harris' first child, George, was born in Annandale and lived only 10 days. Helen Johnston Harris and Reverend George Carroll Harris are buried in Rolling Fork, Mississippi, in the Mound Cemetery. Little George.
Aww. And his tombstone says, I'm going to go see if I can get a that Oh, that's so sad. He was just a few days old.
Yep.
Oh. Alright, let's go find number 8.
Number 8's over here.
On Halloween.
Right. Number 8.
Right here.
Alright.
Number 8 is Bishop Hugh Miller Thompson, second Episcopal Bishop of Mississippi, 1830 through 1902. Brethren, he was an apostle, but he was also a servant, a slave of Jesus Christ. It was that which comforted and sustained him through these long years of hard work, of labor that seemed sometimes so disappointing. To the people of Mississippi, he gave the gifts that were his from God. Bishop Hugh Miller Thompson.
And so he lived a long life. That's his grave. Sorry, I was recording the wrong one. But I was recording the wrong one because number 8's right there. There's this person's, and here he is. So that don't make sense. Maybe it's on the other side, because that's a wrong, different name.
Yeah, it's over.
Okay, so it's over here.
Yeah.
Ha.
That must be his wife.
Yeah, so they're probably in the same grave, maybe?
There's the Reverend Hugh.
There's the Reverend Hugh,
Bishop Hugh.
Bishop Hugh. Okay, now that we corrected that. Alright, let's
Number
find
9.
number 9. Number 9 is over here, so here we go.
Okay, Josh, pose.
Back over here is the big guy.
Hold on, let's get closer so they can hear what you're reading. Right, here we go.
Number 9, John Humphrey. Mr. Humphrey died on March 24, 1906, and left a note. In it, he declared if God existed, he lived at the Chapel of the Cross. Mr. Humphrey wanted to be buried here and enclosed $450 to pay for his tombstone he had ordered from New Orleans. Francis Brighton obtained special permission from church officials, and he was buried in these sacred grounds. Though he never professed a change in belief, one might imagine that sitting in his buggy, straining to hear the word of God, John Humphreys did indeed find him.
Aww. And I love how they all have these little pumpkins that the church obviously provided, but that's really sweet that they did that. Alright, so number 10 is going to be over here. Okay, are you ready?
Yep. So number 10 here is James B. Yellowleaf. Literally, Yellowleaf.
Hold on, I can't. There you go.
Yeah. This is an imposing and old tombstone surrounded by a round ornate fence. Dr. Yellowleaf was born in 1797, probably the earliest birth date of those buried in the cemetery. Born in Halifax County, North Carolina, Dr. Yellowleaf was a physician and a teacher of medicine. He arrived in Madison in 1853 and owned the land that later was developed by the Highland Colony Company into the town of Richland. He died a year later in 1854. Most of his descendants are buried in the Jessamine Cemetery named after his wife, located in the original parcel of land he owned in Richland.
So the Highland Colony Parkway has been around forever then.
The area has, yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Number 11.
Number 11, where are you?
Over here somewhere.
Most likely. There's 13, oh, 11 and 12. We've got to. So how do we get, oh, we get in there by going over there.
We just walk around, aren't they?
Yeah, we have to walk around. Walk around. apologize for the long video, you guys, but this is a pretty awesome tour, I think. Really interesting. I don't want to step on anyone's grave. Okay, hold on. Alright.
This is 11 and 12 from Amelia and Daniel Mann. Mr. Mann purchased,
Mr. Man?
literally, Mr. Mann. I'm not making that up, folks.
Where's it at? I don't see it. Mr. Man, I
Mr.
see
Man.
it now.
Anyway, Mr. Mann purchased the rectory from Margaret Johnston in 1866, along with approximately 100 acres, and soon added over 1,000 more acres of farmland in the surrounding area. In 1870, Mann and Son Mercantile Store was built at the northeast corner of Highway 463 and Gluckstadt Road. The rectory remained with the descendant of the Mann family until it was given to the chapel. The Mann House Old Rectory is now the Montessori School. The area was known as Mansdale.
Learn something new. That is his name, Man.
Mr. Mann.
Mr. Man. Do you think I could walk like right here? So I could get a better view of the grave? I get really freaked out about like accidentally stepping on someone's grave.
Like a hand coming out of the ground.
No, I just find it's like really inappropriate to step on someone's grave.
Don't step too far.
So I'm trying to give you guys a full view. Alright, so there's 11 and 12. So let's try and go to
13's over there.
13. Sorry, excuse me, sorry. You want to... Alright, wait up. Honey. Eric walks a lot faster than I do. I can't walk as fast as he can. I'm not slow. Alright, number 13. Does it even... Yeah, there it is.
Alright. 13. This is Annie Devlin. Miss Devlin has a lonely headstone. She was Helen Johnston's tutor. She had a curvature of the spine which made her appear hunchbacked. She stood 4.5 feet tall and wore a 3-pointed shawl. Miss Devlin took 30 grains of morphine and chased them with the fine brandy, committing suicide. She is buried here with an inscription, Implora Pace, an eerie poem which states, "Peace I implore." After her death at Annandale in 1860, guests at Annandale would see a woman in the upstairs hall. When Annandale burned in 1924, a woman was seen by several witnesses in the window of the upstairs bedroom, Annie Devlin's bedroom.
Oh, so she's the one that supposedly haunts Annandale. I thought it was the fiancé that we learned about earlier. So there you go. There she is.
And number 14.
Let's take a really quick look around what we've seen so far. These must be the new ones right there.
Awesome.
They look really nice.
We got one more on our tour.
One more. Alright. We're at
14. Over there.
We're at 14 minutes and counting so far on our recording here.
It's over there.
There. This is not on the tour, but look how old and pretty that gravestone is. It's Elizabeth C. Yellowy.
Yellowly.
Yellowy. So that's one of the sisters of one of the persons we read about earlier. Most likely. And that one we looked at earlier. Alright, here's number 14. This one looks fairly new.
Well, number 14 here is a memorial to the unmarked slave graves. There are many who are buried here in unmarked graves. Many of these graves are slave graves, but not all. Placed near these graves, this monument is the chapel's outward and visible sign to recognize and honor all who are buried here. Miss Mildred King, who can trace her lineage generations to Sunny Place Plantation in this area, wrote the inscription. With this monument, this church respectfully recognizes and honors those who were buried in these unmarked graves during the early years of this church. May they continually rest in peace.
Well, that was really sweet.
So that's the end of the tour.
That's the end.
And there's some notes here, some additional notes. See, additional notes. And I'm going to read those off real fast. You're going to record me?
Yeah.
Alright, it's Jenny M. Dews died on January 17, 1849 and is buried in what is now the Dews plot on the north side of the chapel. Next to claim a space was Mary Ella Lawrence, a little girl who died in 1853, followed by Margaret Johnston's half-brother, William J. Sutton,
Are we in Nell's
in
Way?
April 1854, and her nephew, one-year-old Lewis William Thompson, in August. James Yellowly and W.R. Bennett were also buried in 1854. Inside the fence with W.R. Bennett are the unmarked graves of his wife, Jane Jones Bennett, and daughter, Martha Bennett Bass Jones. They're over there.
So they were over there with those pieces that we saw earlier.
Over here, up behind you.
Behind me?
Up behind you. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Here I am.
Oh, okay.
She got lost there for a minute, folks.
I didn't know what you were talking about to record you.
Let's see. The next note here, it says the year 1855 added 3 more graves to the little cemetery. Stephen Wells Brighton, 9-month-old Anna Eugene Hinton, and 48-year-old Theodore Dews. In 1857, Reverend Henry Sampson's small children died within a 2-week period. 4 and 1/2-year-old John Harbert Sampson, 3-year-old Samuel Henry Sampson, and 19-month-old Margaret Johnston Pearl Sampson died
That's really sad.
They died during May and June of that year. They are buried on the north side of the chapel. And one can only imagine the grief this family must have suffered at this time. Very true. Let's see. The year of 1858 brought death to 16-month-old Henry Slade Hinton and to Margaret Johnston's sister, Mary Eliza Thompson. Henry Gray Vick was buried in May 1859, followed by 18-month-old Mary Elizabeth Bullock in June and Oscar L. Dews in December. In 11 years, the 10-acre tract on which the chapel stands had a cemetery with 20 or more graves. This does not include the slaves that may have died during this time. So,
Oh, that's
that
really
is
sad.
the Chapel of the Cross
Chapel of the Cross.
cemetery tour.
And we are in Madison, Mississippi.
Yes, Madison, Mississippi.
Okay, let's go look over here really quick and then we'll turn the recorder off. And I'm taking it like as the unknown graves. It's like these little ones.
Yeah, the unmarked grave.
They don't really have much detail on there.
See, there's a few more around.
It's really sad.
So you got the Greaves here, and then these unmarked graves might have been their slaves, maybe?
Yeah, the little ones, I think. Or were they kids, maybe?
No, these are the unmarked graves.
Yeah,
Several of 'em.
okay. That's really sad that they wouldn't do that for their help.
They may not have had names.
Back then they all had names, right?
Never
Didn't
know.
they?
May not. But that's how it was back then. This is the Greaves family.
It's the Greaves family. It looks like the earliest that we've seen so far is 18. Or is there 17? 1817 over there. There's the 1896. Of course, like he was just reading about these little graves or their help that they had. 1884. And is that extended of their family over there?
Those two, yeah.
Okay.
Which they are. But
Alright. Let's go record a little bit of the inside.